Human Geography, Chapter 6 and 7, Tests, Religion and Ethnicity. Here we go. Check it out. We're going to do this. Your test is going to be very, very simple in the event that you study. Watch this video. Remember, I am not actually even looking at the study guide. I'm looking at the test exactly, so what I say is going to reflect that, even though the study guide is a reflection of the test itself, because I make the study guide while looking at the test. But this way, you know exactly what it is you're going to need to know. So, here we go. I need to go ahead and open up the Chapter 6 PowerPoint as well, because I'm sure I'll be referencing both of them. I'm going to ask you questions dealing with religion, dealing with ethnicity, and all these things we talked about in Chapter 6 and 7. In particular, I'm going to ask you about universalizing religions, okay? You're going to need to know everything about universalized religions versus ethnic religions. We talked about these things. This PowerPoint here discusses them right here. It talks about it talks about other universalized religions, and then gets into ethnic religions. Nonetheless, though, know that a universalized religion is a religion that goes out and actively seeks converts. So they look for people to become part of their religion, and also because they look for people to become part of their religion, normally they're pretty easy to join. Ethnic religions, on the other hand, are going to be religions like Judaism and Hinduism, which they don't really care if you join their religion or not. They're going to be grouped together. It's going to be basically a homogeneous group of people, and they're going to be similar to each other, but not necessarily like the rest of the world. These guys aren't looking to seek converts. Their religion is very, very specific to their people. Okay, so that's the difference between universalizing and ethnic religions, or most of the difference is not, at any rate. I'm asking you about Christianity. Don't forget, there are two branches of Christianity that three, but we really spend a lot of time talking about Roman Catholicism and Protestantism. So you're going to see a lot of questions about those two branches of Christianity on your test. I'm asking you, Roman Catholics in North America are largely concentrated where? Well, think about it. It makes sense. First of all, Mexico is part of North America. If you look at the northern hemisphere, Mexico is in the northern hemisphere. There's a large piece of Roman Catholicism right there in terms of population, because most of them are going to be Roman Catholic. You've got the southwest of the United States, places where you've got large amounts of Latino settlers in the United States. You've also got cities that have large pieces of Roman Catholicism or Roman Catholic population in New England states or in the west coast of the United States, and you've also got Quebec. Right? Make sure that you are familiar with those regions where Roman Catholicism is. You should be fine. In terms of Europe, I'm asking you about Roman Catholicism is populated near the southern part of the continent. I want you to think about why that is. We've already looked at this on a map test we did. Alright? Why is that? Well, it could have anything to do with the proximity of Rome. Perhaps. Let's see. I'm also asking you about Buddhism and Hinduism. Know that Hinduism or that Buddhism kind of comes out of Hinduism. Remember, Siddhartha Gautama, the founder of Buddhism, begins to look at the elements of the caste system. He was a prince. He was sheltered his whole life, but he goes out one day and sees the misery and the death and despair and disease and all these things, and begins to ponder, how can these people gain enlightenment? All right. Buddhism is kind of an offshoot of Hinduism because of that. We spent a lot of time talking about Islam. Right? I want to show you guys a quick graphic here. I believe it's going to be in my camera uploads. Hopefully these will load quickly, and we can take a look and see what it is I want to show you. I think this is it right here, but anyway, this will work. perhaps. There we go. Okay, super cool. This is a picture that I took off the internet. I thought that I made it look a little bit better, but even still, what it does is it shows you countries with the largest Muslim populations. Notice the countries that are at the top of that list. Indonesia, where in the world is that? Pakistan, where in the world is that? India, we all know where India is already. You should know where Pakistan and Bangladesh are. They're on either side of India. And then you've got North Africa and the Middle East. Notice that the numbers of Muslims in the North Africa and Middle East are strikingly smaller than these top four, which are not located there at all. Where are they located? Well, if you look at a simple map, bring up my internet real quick. Let's take a look and see where these things are located. Oh man, my computer is painfully slow. Probably should have already had this pulled up. Let's look for this. Indonesia. And there's, it's an island, it's archipelago. Let's just do a better search and do one for, let's see, Eastern Hemisphere. Okay, now let's look at this one here, for example. Just a random photograph or picture of the Eastern Hemisphere. Of course, it's gonna do something to me here and not let me do this. As I was saying, the best examples of where the most Muslims live, not in terms of percentage necessarily, except for the top two, which is Indonesia and Pakistan, but look at where these are located. Indonesia, in terms of the greater perspective of the Eastern Hemisphere, or these islands here, they'd be considered part of Asia. Most places consider this Southwest or Southeast Asia, or maybe even Oceania, but we're going to say Southeast Asia. You've got India here, which is number 3 on the list in terms of Muslims in millions, even though Muslims only make up 13%. You gotta remember there's almost 1 billion people living in India. Okay? Pakistan is this country right here, number 2. Again, this is South Asia with India, South Asia. Bangladesh is number 4, small little country here with a ridiculously dense population of primarily 90% Muslims. So you can add these numbers up together and see that by far the vast majority of Muslims in the world live in South Asia or Southeast Asia. Please make sure that you know that. I'm going to ask you a question that specifically references this map right here. Okay? That's a pretty good map. I think I probably want to save it even because it is that good. Put it in my Dropbox right quick. Okay, so going back to looking at our test. I'm asking you about where are the most, or numerically speaking, which following, which Christian group is the largest. So you need to be able to tell me which group of Christians is the largest there. That should be pretty easy in terms of branches in particular. That's what I'm looking at. Islam diffused across the Eastern Hemisphere through. How did Islam spread? How do most universalizing religions spread? Okay, maybe you've got missionaries. That's the obvious thing. But how else do religions spread? How did Christianity spread back in the early days? You've got trade. Sure. You've got, well, how about war? Do you think people would be forced to be Christians? Surely we wouldn't, or surely Europeans wouldn't explore the Western Hemisphere and force the natives to become Christians, would they? Yes. War, trade, migrations, missionaries, anything like that brings people together through forms of communication is going to be a way that universalized religions in the past have spread about. You know where most Shiite Muslims live. Alright? Um, Turkey is different from Saudi Arabia. How? Well, look at government, for example. Look at the relationship to the Western world. Look at the way the Muslims in Turkey live versus the Muslims in Saudi Arabia. That's what I'm getting at. Um, let's see. In Europe, many Catholics are less likely to attend church. We talked about a idea called secularism, where a lot of people are beginning to kind of not be so religious anymore, but they have this attitude that religion is more like a part of their identity or a part of their heritage, not so much a lifestyle or something that they should guide their lives by. Secularism is getting a hold of Europe. Um, let's see, we've already talked about ethnic religions. I'm going to ask you to look at and label ethnic religions. Which pair are both considered ethnic religions. I'm asking you about the city of Jerusalem. Please know the religions that the city of Jerusalem are holy to. Okay? Very important. We're talking about the smallest religion, so be able to look at some of the bigger religions, the ones that you're doing in your Real Religion project, for example, and know which ones are the smallest and which ones are the largest. Now, I'm not going to ask you about different pagan religions or things like that. Just the broad stuff. Let's see. Which of the following religions is not an important religion in India? So be able to know what religions are important to India. There's several we talked about. Let's see. Where do the Jews live today? Where do most of them live? Well, probably about half of them in Israel. Where does the other half live? Well, you can look up a Jewish distribution map and see that a lot of them are going to have little stars in different European cities and different North American cities. So they're spread out like that. I'm going to ask you about. We did an assignment called so I can't remember how I called it. We looked at places of worship. We looked at burial practices. How does all those things affect or influence the cultural landscape? Let's see. I'm going to ask you about where is the largest concentration of Protestants in the world. I'm going to ask you about the term for a group of people who identify with their cultural and biological history. Hey, by the way, these vocabulary words, if you guys aren't looking in the back of the chapters at these vocabulary words, a lot of times they are worded exactly like this on my tests and quizzes. That question right there, you will find that exact definition with that exact word that goes with it in the back of Chapter 7. Alright, so take a look at Chapter 7 and be familiar with words like race, ethnicity, nationality, and nation. You might need to look in Chapter 8 for nation. Alright, definitely Chapter 8 for state if I ask you a question about state, which we all talked about already. We had a quiz on that. Ethnocentrism, that should be another word that's probably in the back of your another vocabulary word in the back of Chapter 7. Which statement, I'm asking you about statements dealing with race and ethnicity. Which one is true? In other words, be able to tell me some of the differences between race and ethnicity. What is race? What is ethnicity? Etc. Apartheid. We did an assignment on the policy of apartheid in South Africa, so be familiar with that. African Americans predominantly live where in the United States of America? We looked at a map that shows this. In fact, I'll show you this map. It's in Chapter 7. It's kind of early on. Right here. You might very well see this map when you take your test as well, and you need to be able to identify the ethnicity that's being shown in the map. So, and not only do African Americans live in the southern United States, but they also live in large urban cities in the north. So, just be familiar with that. Let's see. I'm asking you about the largest minority group in the United States of America. We talked about that early on in ethnicity as well. We were looking at the distribution of ethnicities, and we learned that. Oh goodness, this is incorrect. I thought that I changed this. This it should be the other way around. Hispanics are the largest minority ethnicity at about 14%. African Americans are about 10. So just wanted to. I think that's yeah, that's how it should say. I could have sworn that we saved that. Maybe I'm thinking we did in the shared folder. But either way, know that. Please know that. Don't get it mixed up. African Americans are not the largest or second largest minority ethnicity. The largest is going to be Hispanics. I'm asking you about the caste system. Please be able to tell me which country the caste system is associated with. Which of the following lists religions that all started in Southwest Asia? So know which religion started in Southwest Asia. Be sure that you know where Southwest Asia is. Which of the following has the highest concentration of Muslims? That one should be easy if you pay attention to the countries I showed you earlier. You're going to identify another universalizing religion, so make sure that you know which religions we talk. Basically, which religions on your World Religion Project are universalizing and which ones are not. That's what I'm kind of asking you about there. I'm going to ask you to tell me about the Kaaba. The Kaaba, K-A-A-B-A. Internet's so slow, but anyway, it'll pop up at some point. But tell me about the Kaaba. I'm not gonna wait on it because I don't want to build up minutes on my video. I'm also going to ask you to identify a mosque. I'm going to ask you to identify a cathedral, and I might ask you to identify other important worship places or sites within the religion as well. What I mean by identify is I'm going to be showing you pictures of them, like this picture of the Kaaba, for example, or maybe a picture of the Kaaba, and ask you to identify, what it is, what religion it goes with, etc. This is kind of cool. I've never really seen a picture that shows the inside of the Kaaba. That's interesting. I wonder how correct that is. Anyway, another question about universalized religions. Protestant Christianity is an example of, is it a religion, is a sect or branch, denomination? Make sure that y'all understand what those terms mean. Where are you going to find the greatest concentration of adherents to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints? That one should be common knowledge for you guys as well, but it's very, very Googleable if not. I'm going to ask you to identify the Golden Temple of Amritsar. We're another question about definition of race. I am going to show you another map dealing with ethnicity. It's found in the ethnicity PowerPoint. Let's see. When Muslims go to Mecca on the pilgrimage called the Hajj, what are they doing there? What's the point in that? Tell me about the Hajj. You need to know where Paul, the Apostle Paul, where did he spend his time doing missionary work? If you come up here and you do an image search for Paul's missions, it should come up with various maps that will show you exactly the region where he spent his time doing missionary work. So make sure that you know regionally where in the Roman Empire he did his missionary work. Here's several good maps. I mean, this is the one that I use the most for my world history classes. So it's pretty clear if you look at that. I'm showing you a map on Russia and the various ethnic groups within Russia that I need you to be able to understand the situation with the huge amounts of nationalities in Russia. Know that obviously Russia is a multinational state. Be able to tell me a little bit about how those nations get along. I'm showing you a graphic that is a political cartoon of President Mandela from South Africa, and you will need to be able to interpret that political cartoon and figure out its meaning based on the fact that he goes into the jail small and comes out huge. That should be very simple for you guys if you really pay attention to what's going on. But make sure that you guys understand Nelson Mandela and his role in South Africa. I'm going to ask you to be able to tell me understand the migration trends of African Americans in the United States. So be able to be familiar with that. And also, lastly, I'm going to show you this map of the ethnic. Hang on. This map here of the ethnicities in Los Angeles. You're going to see that map there. You have to be able to interpret that map. Why am I showing you that map? What's the purpose in studying that map? Okay? And that's absolutely all of it. I'm going to ask you on the multiple choice section of this test. It is 46 questions. I'm going to count them. I'm probably going to end up counting them one point apiece. I don't know. Actually, I might put them in grade can, which will give them a very accurate percentage. But they're going to be roughly 1 point apiece. And it's just that simple. You watch the video, you're going to do just fine on that. Okay? I will be making I may or may not make a separate video on the free response sections, but I'm going to give you guys some time in class to definitely answer and be familiar with the free response regardless of what I do. So good luck on the test, and again, if you guys pay attention to this, take notes on it, watch it a couple times, only 20 minutes long, you'll do fine, okay? Feel free to contact me, text me, Edmodo, Twitter, anything if you have any questions.